all time. Why? This tower of books is gonna fall, I just know it. Car alarm's going off, great. Of course my light has to change at that moment. I swear, if that car alarm goes off one more time. What is this book called? Does a toddler have your keys? Seriously, what is going on? Hey fellow fiction fanatics, I'm Chase. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my Bookish Awards for 2020, which is essentially when I do a Academy Awards for all the books that I read in the last year. This video was inspired by both Dash of Ash and PeruseProject, so I'll link their channels down below. I have a lot of books to talk about, so let's get into it. So the first award is for Best Male Character, and the award goes to Laszlo Strange from Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Laszlo is just an amazing character. He loves books and is so passionate about his love for the lost city of Weep. I can't really say a whole lot because of the way this story goes, but he's just a fantastic character overall, and that's why I chose him for Best Male Character. Next up, we have Best Female Character. So I'm choosing Imani Santiago from With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. She is just a queen. She is so passionate and driven and so strong-willed and determined, and I love her to death. She's just a fireball and I love her so much. She definitely deserves this spot as Best Female Character, and I just love her for everything she is. This is a fantastic book and I would definitely recommend you pick this up if you haven't read it yet. Next up is Best Side Character. So I couldn't name one without the other, so I'm picking Nate and Janelle from the Truly Devious trilogy. Nate and Janelle are Stevie's best friends and they are absolutely fantastic. Nate is just a grumpy little storm cloud. He is hilarious and lovable because of this. Janelle is a mechanical genius who wears lemon dresses when she is both nervous and wanting a little bit of luck. I just think she is adorable. These characters together make a fantastic trio, and I'm so glad that they are the best of friends and they're just perfection together. Next up, we have Best Plot Twist, a book that kept me on my toes. So I'm picking Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in the Strange the Dreamer duology. The first one leaves in a huge cliffhanger. The second one is fantastic, and I had no idea where this was gonna go. I loved all the new characters and just everything that went into it. Can't say too much because there's huge spoilers for the first one, but it was amazing, and I definitely recommend picking up this duology. For Best Cover, I am a little biased because I absolutely love sunsets. They're just my favorite color scheme, and there's so much meaning behind this cover, but I really do think it's one of the most beautiful covers I've seen, and that is Mastering Our Mountains by a number of different authors, including myself, but I really think this cover is stunning, and I just think it's beautiful. For Most Unique World, I'm picking The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This just has the cutest, most adorable little tea dragons. I mean, it's just such a unique concept and world that I really think is adorable. It's just so sweet and endearing, and I just really fell in love with it. For Best New to Me Author, I'm picking Tomi Adeyemi, who wrote both Children of Blood and Bone and Children of Virtue and Vengeance. I was really intimidated by this book, but I am so glad that I was able to read it in 2020. Tomi Adeyemi has become one of my new favorite authors, and I am so glad I picked up this series. For Best Standalone, I'm picking Holes by Louis Akar. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I really enjoyed this book. This is definitely a book that I want to read to my future kids, and I really enjoyed reading it this year. For Best Short Book, I'm picking Camp Jupiter Classified by Rick Riordan. I was pleasantly surprised by this short story, and I'm really glad that I gave it a chance and picked it up this year. For Best Standalone, I'm picking Holes by Louis Akar. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I really enjoyed this book. This is definitely a book that I want to read to my future kids, and I really enjoyed reading it this year. For Best Emotional Read, I picked Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This was another new to me author that I very much enjoyed reading from this year. This was a very hard-hitting, fantastic book. This is a book that definitely needs to be read, and it had a very strong emotional impact on me. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, and I think that's a real shame. Definitely pick this up. It is a well-needed book, and it's about this boy who kind of takes on the mantra, what would Martin do? as in Martin Luther King Jr., and he starts seeing all the racism that goes on between his friends, and a lot of things go down, and I can't say too much else, but it is definitely worth reading. For best fangirl-worthy read, I chose Chaotic Good by Whitney Gardner. So this has a great nerdy vibes, especially if you love Dungeons and Dragons. Although I didn't love the ending, I wish it had been tweaked just a bit, but if I go with the ending that I have in my head, then I think it is a great book, and it definitely deserves this award. For most surprising read, I chose Once Upon a Spine by Kate Carlisle. This was a surprising read because 1, I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would, and 2, I had no idea that this was the 11th book in a series, but I was still actually able to enjoy it and jump into the story with minimal spoilers to the rest of the series, and I actually really want to pick up the rest of the series and see how everything gets to this point. So it was really good, and I was very surprised by how much I liked it. For my most disappointing read, unfortunately, that's gonna have to be The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. This was one of my most anticipated books for the year, and it was a very big letdown for me. It wasn't what I was expecting, and I really didn't enjoy it all that much. So unfortunately, this was the most disappointing book that I read this year. For my most underrated book that I read this year, I'm picking My True Love Gave to Me by a number of different authors and edited by Stephanie Perkins. I fell in love with these stories. There was a couple of them that were just a little bit mediocre, but overall I loved it. And it definitely got me into the Christmas romance mood, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I would definitely recommend picking it up if you haven't read it, but you probably want to pick it up around Christmas time. And the funniest book I read this year would have to go to The Tyrant's Tomb by Rick Riordan. I thought this book was hilarious, and that humor was very much needed because of how book 3 ends. Wow. But I very much enjoy the humor throughout this series, and I'm both terrified and excited to get to the 5th and final book of this series in 2021. For Best Contemporary I read this year, I'm actually picking a reread. I decided to reread this book, 1, because I wanted to tab up the book the way I do now, and 2, because of everything going on. I felt it was a very much needed reread, and that book is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I love Angie Thomas, and I am very much looking forward to read Concrete Rose in 2021. This is a phenomenal novel that definitely deserves to be read over and over again and is very much needed. If you haven't read this book, what are you doing? Pick it up, read it. It is phenomenal, and I can't give this book higher praise. It's just so hard-hitting, and the family dynamics and everything that goes on is just wow, and I'm so glad that I have this book in my collection. Angie Thomas is just a fantastic author, and I will read anything and everything she writes. For Best Fantasy, I'm picking Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first Brandon Sanderson book that I've ever read, and I thought it was great. I loved Light Song. He was hilarious, and I loved how everything came together in the end. The magic system was really cool and intriguing, and I'm so glad that I finally was able to pick up a Brandon Sanderson book. For Best Sci-Fi, I'm picking The Toll by Neil Shusterman. This is the 3rd and final book in the Arc of the Scythe trilogy, and I really enjoyed the way everything wrapped up in this novel. This is such a cool concept, and this has one of the most terrifying villains that I've ever read, and the way that second book ended was just phenomenal. This series will blow your mind, and I can't recommend it more. Definitely give this series a go because it is one of the best series that I've ever read, and I really, really enjoyed it. Next up is Best Adaptation. So for that, I'm picking Dumplin' by Julie Murphy. I actually enjoyed this adaptation more than the book. I know that's a little blasphemous to say, but it's true. I just really enjoyed how the adaptation was done. It added a few things that I wish the book had done, and it took away things that I felt were unnecessary in the book. So I thought this adaptation was great, and I'm really glad that I was able to read both the book and see the adaptation this year. Next up is Newest Genre. This is a genre or type of book that I really got into this year. So this year, I actually reread a ton of books. If you'd asked me 3 years ago if I reread books, I would say never. This year, I reread 15 books, which is astounding to me, and I will definitely reread books in the future because I really enjoyed rereading these books, and I will continue to do so. And last, but certainly not least, is my best overall read. And that award definitely has to go to Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This was a phenomenal read. I recommend it to everyone and anyone. just pick it up because it is so heartwarming and wonderful. It really is. It's just so sweet, and you can relate to so many different characters. Your heart will just go out to Augie, and it just deals with bullying and fitting into life, really. I just can't stop singing praises for this book because it is phenomenal, and I just really want everyone to read it because it is that good. Out of all the books that I've talked about, please pick this book up. It'll just melt your heart. You'll just want to share it with others. You really will. And that's it for my Bookish Awards for all the books that I read in 2020. I'd love to know some of the books that you were able to read and what books you would choose to fit in these categories. So please let me know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to share the love. I'll see you next time. Bye!